Let's review the soccer games that I went to in 2024 and the first American Summers of Soccer with all of the tournaments coming here to the United States. Let's also discuss how the FIFA Club World Cup took shape and, of course, the big elephant in the room. Dímelo, mi gente. This is Travel Football Fan. I'm helping fans save money and travel the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup and the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Now, wanted to go ahead and review the year of 2024, not only to the soccer games I went to, of course, but just general trends that I noticed in regards to travel, in regards to politics. Of course, we'll talk about that towards the end. So if you can't handle the politics talk, you can go ahead and just watch most of the video and then end it there. But overall, what did I notice from this year that we might be noticing for 2025, 2026, and so on, right? Because America is entering this decade of mega sports, right? Part of it is the summers of soccer that we have been promised, right? 2024 started with Copa America, even though I went to an earlier tournament, which really should have been the one kicking things off. 2025 FIFA Club World Cup, 2026 Men's World Cup. We would have hosted the 2027 Women's World Cup. And actually, I didn't even write that on my notes here, but we're no longer doing that. And then, of course, the 2028 LA Olympics. So let's get into all of these topics, okay? Talk about the big elephant in the room with Trump's presidential election, because that is going to affect how these tournaments are going to be perceived. How are they going to be operationalized, right? In that respect. And we'll just go into all those topics. Okay, so 2024 was very special for me as a Colombian American because it was the first time that I got to see both the women's and men's national teams. Okay, so I started off my year in February, flying to San Diego and doing a 24-hour trip all the way out to the West Coast. I live in Washington, D.C., so it's a bit of a hike to get all the way to San Diego. And I wanted to see the Colombian women's national team participate at the Women's CONCACAF Gold Cup. Now, as a Colombian American, it was a very emotional experience to see the Colombian national team play, regardless whether it was women's or men's. It just happened to be that the women's were playing first in the calendar year. As a Colombian American that, born in New York, but grew up my whole life in Miami, it's always been a bit of an identity struggle in that respect. There's a saying here, ni de aquí ni de allá, nor from here nor from there. Can never be Colombian enough, can never be American enough. And growing up in a place like Miami, which in many ways is the capital of Latin America, culturally speaking, it almost represents a bridge to between these two worlds. You just couldn't feel more lost in that respect, or maybe you knew where you were, but you just couldn't feel attached to one side or the other. And so, going to see the Colombian women's national team did feel emotional, and I know that for a lot of people when I share that content at the beginning of the year, they were surprised, but also unfortunately a lot of negative comments about oh, this guy supports women's soccer, he flew all the way to San Diego just to see them. It's like, yes, I did. Yes, I did. It's just as important to support women's soccer as it is to support men's soccer. I mean, Colombia is Colombia. The women's and the men's fly and play and sweat and bleed for the same colors. And I felt that was important to go show my support for Colombia by flying all the way to San Diego. And, with the men's team, not only being here in DC, it was a lot closer, but then flying to Charlotte during Copa America. And we'll get to that in a minute. But it just felt as a way of showing my love and my support for my homeland, for the culture, for the that my blood represents, to go all the way out of San Diego and see that match. Irrespective of the result, Colombia did end up losing the match 1-0 to a very good Brazilian team. But I was really disappointed by the marketing. And we'll talk more about the marketing for Copa America as well. But the marketing was just bad for those matches of the Women's Gold Cup. And it's not because, again, not those negative comments are like, well, but it's just women's soccer. And, who watches that anyway? No, it's not that. It's just CONCACAF didn't really put the resources to support the tournament. Snapdragon Stadium was fine. It looked fine enough as a venue, but I had heard complaints about the venue itself, the ground conditions, and so on. But when my Lyft driver, who ended up also being Colombian, didn't know that the Colombian women's national team was playing that afternoon, that I was going to that game, there's a problem right there. You have the Colombian fan base, is generally very good at supporting both the men's and the women's national teams. And so when you have a fan base that is willing to go travel, as they've demonstrated this year during the summer, during Copa America, to support the men's team, and then that they're also willing to go and travel to support the women's team, that stadium should have been much more fuller than what it was, right? I think it was only several thousand people bought tickets to that game for the Women's Gold Cup. And so there needs to be more work. There needs to be more support for the women's game. And if CONCACAF is unwilling to do that, then I mean, shoot, then we need other ways to promote these types of tournaments, because it was really good soccer that I saw. There was a second game that I went to before that one. It was like a 2-for-1 doubleheader. Puerto Rico made history, and I witnessed women's soccer history because Puerto Rico beat El Salvador 2-1. And that's exciting to watch those types of games, to watch those types of storylines develop. And as the women's game continues to develop and continues to gain more viewership, it's very cool to be part of that experience of seeing, oh yeah, I went to see that game, and yeah, there was barely anyone there, or several hundred. I was about 1,000 people were there before the Colombia Brazil match, but it was cool to witness that event. And so definitely the marketing for women's soccer in general just needs to improve overall. But specifically for the Gold Cup, even though that was the one negative side, I would say that the overall positive side was all the fans were there supporting both teams. Um, and I just want to see more of that. And it is a bit of a shame that we being the United States and Mexico, decided to not pursue the 2027 Women's World Cup bid, and instead tune up for 2031. Of course, this decision was made before the elections of 2024, so I'm not saying that that decision was made because there was a fear of now President-elect Trump being in office. But now that you're kind of seeing the mood of the country, the mood of how this administration is going to, potentially pursue things, it might have been for the best that the Women's World Cup would not be hosted in the United States in 2027, given the political and social environment that we're in right now. And that perhaps it's giving the United States a bit of time to maybe reconfigure itself, hopefully, to 2031, and see where we're at as a society. Now, before I get into Copa America itself and the experiences that I had with two of the Colombians men national games, I wanted to quickly talk about the ticket sales process that happened for Copa America. In short, it was a complete shambolic process. I actually made a YouTube video about it. I think the video didn't come out at the best quality, so I do apologize for that if you go ahead and do check it out. But overall, that experience was trash. I think safe to say a lot of fans were sharing their massive disappointment, and that's an understatement, of just how that process went, from allowing fans to buy up to 12 tickets, which I think was really insane, and just opened the floodgates for the scalpers to come in, buy the inventory, and resell it at a much higher price, to sharing these codes that supposedly was unique to each person, but people started sharing the codes. And in reality, instead of helping us fans getting access to tickets earlier, it just opened again the floodgates for the scalpers to take advantage and pick up as many tickets as they could before the general public sale. Also, why even create a pre-sale for, I think it was for city card holders, if you weren't even going to respect that, right? Or if you were not going to create the mechanisms in place to be able to identify whether the person is using a city credit card or not. Overall, it was just a terrible experience. The first sale that tickets happened, I believe, was in January. No, not even January, February, right? Late February. Because remember, there was that post by, I believe, was Austin FC that put it on their website. Oh yeah, the tickets are gonna be in January, and then that ended up not happening, and we just having to keep waiting and waiting and waiting until late February for those sales to happen. And then it wasn't all the tickets, right? It was all up to the semifinal. Then the final went on sale in April, and yes, even though the number of tickets was reduced that one person could buy, I think it went from 12 to 8. And even then, still too many tickets for one person to be able to buy without being able to put the mechanism in place of ensuring that it's one ticket per person, right? That there's a person identified with that ticket. And again, just opened up the opportunity for scalpers to come in, buy all the tickets, and drive up the price of these tickets. So overall, that process was completely botched. And maybe those were some of the learning lessons that Ticketmaster took for later on for the Club World Cup. We'll talk about that more later on in this video. Now, what was my travel observations overall for Copa America? Well, before that, I went to the friendly that they had here in DC versus the United States. And again, that was the first time I got to see the men's national team play, which in itself was a wonderful experience too. I ended up learning the anthem as well. Realized, oh yeah, I don't know the lyrics to the song, so did that. But I will say that one of the unique things that came out of that game, right? And I did a video about it afterwards. Is that so many people were saying, "Why are you cheering against the United States?" And again, it goes back into those issues and those questions of identity, right? And where I belong. And I think that the overall answer there is that I wasn't necessarily cheering against the United States. Actually, a lot of Colombian fans that went to the game weren't cheering against the United States. They were just cheering for their homeland, for their country of blood, of culture. And so, if anything, what a lot of fans were telling me was that, well, no, I mean, we will cheer for the U.S. other times. We really respect a lot of the players that they have. They think that they're a very solid squad. It's just Colombia's here. Estamos acá. ¿Cómo no vamos a celebrar la cultura? ¿No? ¿Cómo no vamos a celebrar a James y a Luchito y todos los muchachos que van a venir a jugar aquí la Copa América? ¿Cómo no se le va a apoyar? So, I think that was kind of eye opening because it is going to get into some of those cultural topics that will I'm sure will come up in the months as we lead to the 2026 World Cup, where this supposed disadvantage that the U.S. men's national team has in the United States of playing in places other than the Midwest, it appears that it always seems to be outnumbered by fans of the opposing side. And at least for this game versus Colombia, again, it's not that Colombians were cheering against the U.S., it's that we were cheering para Colombia. All right, with that out the way, I finally got to make it to a Copa America match all the way to the semifinal. I had plans to go to Santa Clara to see the Colombia-Brazil match. Just travel did not align. Had some personal projects here that we've been working here, and just it was not possible for me to pull off that travel. And so one of the learning lessons there is that if for 2026, definitely cannot leave travel to the last minute. For this match, right here in Charlotte, which if you're not familiar with the travel between DC and Charlotte, it's really about an hour and a half tops away on a flight. That flight round trip, uh, basically a one night stay in Charlotte would have cost me over $600 cash because I had left the travel booking for the last minute. And again, not because I was lazy in booking the tickets. It was more because again of these personal projects I've been working on that really I just couldn't book as early as I could. Fortunately for me, I was able to use my Alaska Airlines miles to book that flight, that round trip flight from DCA to Charlotte for 9,000 Alaska miles. And I think it was like $40 in taxes, which saved me those $600 hands down. It was one of the best redemptions I made. And I've flown international first class flights. Okay. And that was one of the best money for mile redemptions that I've made in my travels. Okay. And it was to the Copa America semifinal versus Uruguay, which of course then I lost my phone that day. Basically did not capture any content whatsoever, save for a few pictures that, funny enough, the folks that were sitting next to me, Colombianos también from Charlotte, took. And I was able to just at least grab a few of those, and you'll see them here on the screen as I'm talking. But that experience of losing the phone was very stressful. It obviously added some expenses as I was trying to look for the phone. And that game was just like one of those uncut gems. If you've ever watched that movie, it just felt one of those games where it was just peleado. And of course, was it Munoz? I think was the one that got the red card. I might be mistaking the players. Yeah, I think it was Munoz. Um, and it was just one of those games that it was just a brawl, and I mean, it literally ended up in a brawl. With the Uruguay players and some of the Colombian fans, which was disappointing. Obviously, as much as you laugh at that and you say, "Oh, but that's just the passion of South American football," which it is. I mean, let's just be honest. That's kind of one of the things that makes South American football unique is that we're willing to throw hands at the stadium. But you know, it is also sad to see that, right? Because then what ended up happening at the Copa America final, which I did not go to, was really a black eye for a lot of us Colombians, right? Because it's just so obvious to tell that we wear the yellow jersey and, we wear those colors with pride. And it was just sad to see. It was very sad to see Colombian fans acting the way they did. I'm not saying it was only just Colombian fans, there was a bunch of other fans too, of course. Um, but also my city, Miami, unable to properly secure that venue, right? So it was just overall very sad to see that experience, for the Copa America final. Now, before I continue forward on that, a couple of things I want to come back to. Like I said, the flight was expensive. The hotel really wasn't, and I was able to use. I think it was about 30,000 Hilton points. I did create some additional content on this on my socials. So I was able to save about $180, $200 on my hotel, which was great. I paid an extra $50. That was basically the redemption I made. Uh, so yeah, the hotels didn't seem badly priced. It's just that a lot of them were already sold out because of the fans, driving in mostly to Charlotte. So again, if this is an indication for all of you as you prepare for 2025 for the FIFA Club World Cup or the FIFA World Cup in 2026, is to book your travel as early as possible. I got very fortunate, very lucky that I was able to pull off that travel to Charlotte because I had the miles and the availability for those miles was there to book that travel, because or else I wouldn't have paid $600 to fly there. I would not have done that. I probably would have driven there. Okay. And that would have been a longer trip. And that the hotels were available too, right? Because I was talking to other fans and they were telling me, oh, but the hotels, I can't find availability. I was in a WhatsApp chat group that they were trying to help each other out. There was carpools happening from all over the East Coast. So overall, I was very fortunate that I was able to pull off that travel there. Now, the Santa Clara travel, had I done that, it would have cost me easily $2,000 for two, right? For my wife and I, because it would have had to have been at least 3 nights, right? The night before, the game night, and then the game after, and then the night after, probably. And the flights from San Francisco back to DC, a lot of them take off early a.m. the next day, like early, like 5, 6 a.m. So it just, it would not have been the most pleasant travel to undertake if we would have just done like kind of like a 36-hour, 48-hour kind of come and go and leave type of situation. And so there was that. There was the car rental, the hotel night. There was a lot of factors where, at least from a money standpoint, it also would not have made much sense for us to have gone to Santa Clara and watched Colombia, Brazil, as great of a game as that was. So again, take these lessons of Copa America. If you felt like you overspent, well, look at how much you spent again during Copa America and see what could you do better. Could you get a travel rewards credit card? Could you have saved more money? If you can't or don't have the credit score necessary for a travel rewards credit card, can you get a cashback credit card? Can you book your travel earlier? Or ask yourself those questions now, because especially if you want to go for 2025 for the Club World Cup, but even for the World Cup, these next 6 months are going to be critical for you to start planning those travels. So then that way you are ready to go when you know your team is going to play for the 2026 World Cup. And if, again, for the Club World Cup, I hope you're not going to be spending a lot of money, because, again, those tickets will come on sale later in 2025. Now, one event that was really, really interesting was the TST 7v7 tournament. I've heard of this soccer tournament before, didn't really give it too much attention, but then I decided to just go to see what the hype was all about. And honestly, I could see the hype, okay? It's a very different tournament style, right? Has all these unique rules, I'll say. And overall, I was pleased with the experience. Again, with in terms of the travel, I was able to use a Delta voucher that I had from a previous flight that they had canceled on me, so I was able to save money on that flight. I used my Hilton points to cover the full cost of that hotel night, so I was good there. So relatively, it was a very budget friendly travel that I was able to do to Cary, North Carolina. Uh, and then throughout the day on the Sunday, there wasn't as many folks as there was before in the tournament. So probably I would have gone earlier to try to meet more folks. I did meet cool folks like Chris Polanco from the Cooligans, Kevin Cho. Like I was able to meet quite a few folks, but probably had I gone earlier, I would have been even be able to meet more people at that event. But overall, it was exciting. I got to see that semifinal match where Nani pretty much sealed the deal to send his team to the final. Too bad they couldn't win the tournament itself, but it was again very unique. And I really am pointing it out in large part because the team that I own in Scotland, the Caledonian Braves, we are looking to make it to the TST 7v7 tournament in 2025. That is kind of one of the goals that we have there as a club. And so if we're able to participate, gain more recognition of our club, and hopefully win the tournament, win that extra $1,000,000, that would be a nice boost to the club's finances. So again, it was a really interesting tournament to say the least. I think I'm a fan of it. I think I do like that this is a very different way to, experience soccer. And I think here in the United States, right, where there's this perceived notion that Americans don't have a soccer culture. Like I said, I think where a lot of fans will come at you is that is such a super misguided perception. For example, when I was in Miami, when I went to see the Destination Miami CBS event that they had placed there for the Champions League, I had heard concerns of like, well, we don't know if Miami's going to come out for this event. We don't know if they support the Champions League. And it's like, fam, Real Madrid, Barcelona alone, half of that city is like fans of those teams. Like Miami and the people that are from that city, that are in that city, watch like 5, 6 different leagues. That's our soccer culture. It's not an English culture. It's not a South American culture. It's an American culture where we are basically plugged in to all of these different leagues, right? Typically, it's either one of the European leagues, MLS, and one of the South American leagues, right, or Central American leagues, depending, right? It typically goes in that fashion, and so that's our culture. And so TST represents another way that Americans consume soccer. Okay, they consume it by either watching other leagues, watching MLS, playing FIFA, right, or now EAFC, I suppose, or now watching TST 7v7. It's the different ways that we consume soccer and that serve as entry points, right, to the game in general. So I like it. TST, if y'all watching this video, let me know if you want to send me an invite. I'm more than happy to go back to Cary, North Carolina next summer, check out the tournament more so, and maybe do content related to travel. Not only of my own travel to North Carolina, but maybe how some of these teams could save money or helping the players earn those travel points and miles, and that way they can, after the tournament, take a nice, well-deserved break on those points and miles that they would have been earning from their travels to the TST 7v7 tournament. As for the FIFA Club World Cup, I will say this. I was surprised that this tournament is going to be happening because at this point, um, it's going to happen. I mean, you have the ticket sales that are currently happening right now, uh, but it wasn't necessarily a given that FIFA and Gianni Infantino was going to be able to pull off the FIFA Club World Cup. If you remember, throughout 2024, there was all of these discussions about whether the big European clubs, like let's just say Real Madrid. Okay, Real Madrid was basically saying, we're not going to compete in this. We're not bringing our A-star players. We don't even know how much money we're going to make out of it or how much money we're going to lose by participating in this tournament. So, whatever, screw you, FIFA, in that respect, right? Of course, it's very funny to hear Real Madrid and a lot of these other European clubs say, but it's because, you're not letting the players rest, even though they themselves participate in these preseason summer tours. And they're even trying to bring league games to the United States. So it's kind of weird how, the one percenters in soccer are fighting each other to see who gets to bring games to the United States. Regardless of that conversation, I will say that I was surprised that Gianni and FIFA were able to pull this event off. They were able to get, the stadiums, which I was surprised at. Not only that it's 12 stadiums, but the locations of these stadiums, right? Mostly East Coast, which you could say, yeah, that was a strategic decision, right? To keep the travel as low as possible. It's with the exception, of course, of Seattle because of the Sounders, and LA, which I'm assuming part of it to attract some of the Asian fan base from some of these clubs from over that part of the world. But overall, most of the games on the East Coast. I was surprised at the schedule itself. I thought that some of these smaller, quote unquote, smaller cities like Nashville, Cincinnati, were not going to get very good games. Instead, they are going to get some quality teams there. I believe Dortmund's going to be playing in Nashville. I'll have to check the schedule again. But I know that Bayern is going to be playing in Cincinnati. So again, I was pleasantly surprised that, you will have some big clubs playing in some of these cities. I was surprised that the Ticketmaster collaboration, I think that one was kind of the big surprise in all of this. Again, seeing what had happened earlier in the year with Copa America, was this going to work? And the answer was it did. And a lot of people were pleasantly surprised. Now, were some people not liking the prices? Yes. Okay, so let's take a few steps back at that. So the process itself, it was not really announced by FIFA or by Ticketmaster until like almost 48 hours before the public sale, right? Or 72 hours before. Season ticket holders got access to a pre-sale code to purchase tickets. Here, fans, some of them, decided to share the code out, which was not good because you're really not, again, it's not only not fair for the season ticket holders, you gave the scalpers the opportunity to purchase those tickets ahead of time. And I think a lot of people are not realizing that they're committing this big mistake that is going to mess it up for everybody else. Now, the good thing that Ticketmaster and FIFA did here was that they did limit the number of tickets so you could purchase, I think it was up to 6, which is a heck of a lot better than 12. Okay. I think that was a very big improvement in that regard. And even though the codes were kind of easy to decipher, it seemed that the scalpers only went for specific games. So the Inter Miami matches, they went for maybe a couple of the other big European club matches, but they didn't really scalp all of them, or they didn't really get to scalp all of those tickets. So that was good because I'm still, at least a couple of days ago, still seeing Juventus versus Wydad in Philadelphia still selling for $45, which is actually quite a good price for that type of event, for that type of ticket. Sure, you might have not seen Wydad before, but that's kind of the appeal, right? You want to see some of these other club teams that you don't get to see on a day in, day out basis. Of course, some of these prices were bad, right? The Miami match is terribly expensive, which doesn't make sense, especially given that they are playing Al Ahly, which is a really good team. They're playing Porto, sure, which is weird that they would put that game in Atlanta. That was definitely weird. For all of you that are saying that, FIFA's trying to hook up Inter Miami, why then make them play in Atlanta? That makes absolutely no sense. Um, Overall, some of those ticket prices were very high. And again, that's because of the combination of fans sharing those codes, which allowed the scalpers access to those tickets, buying them ahead of time, reselling them at a higher price. And then, of course, the overall demand of the fans wanting those tickets, increasing those prices even more so because of the dynamic pricing function that Ticketmaster has, which I will come out front and flatly say should be illegal. That should not be happening, just because you're basically taking advantage of people's emotions, of people's desire to go see their favorite teams or their favorite artists, and you're just going to drive up the price there. This isn't like, Uber, where, yes, everyone wants a taxi, but there's not enough taxis out there. Okay, fine. I can see why the price would increase there. But even then, this aspect of dynamic pricing should be banned. Anywho, overall, though, it seemed that the process did work out well for FIFA and for Ticketmaster, which does lead into questions for 2025 for the World Cup. I'll cover that in another video. But overall, the sales went well. We're going to see what happens with that tournament 2025. I cover that in my next video. And we're going to see, or rather, what we did see, right? Since this is a year review of 2024, we did see the FIFA Club World Cup being pulled off by Infantino, by FIFA, and this project does look like it's definitely heading towards a launch date of, I believe it's June 13th, if I got my dates right. Is it going to work? Again, we'll talk about that in the next video. All right, now let's talk about the elephant in the room. So if you don't wish to hear my perspectives on this, feel free to skip the rest of the video, but here we go. So what does Trump's victory in the 2024 election mean for the summers of soccer coming up in the United States, 2025, 2026, 2028, right? Well, right off the bat, if we want to go into the policy discussion, right, we don't know what this is going to mean for visas, especially for international fans coming to the United States. There is a track record already from the first Trump administration that he wants a Muslim ban, if perhaps even an expanded version of that Muslim ban. And remember, for us Latinos, if you're going to be saying, well, that doesn't matter to us, it does, because it would also ban travel from Venezuela. So all you Venezolanos that are wanting to come potentially to see Venezuela play in the 2026 World Cup, you ain't going to be able to, because of this Trump policy. Okay. No discussion whether, I'm a good immigrant. None of that stuff. You are completely banned. Okay. We won't be seeing teams like North Korea make it to the World Cup. It doesn't seem like it. But teams like Iraq could make the World Cup. So are they going to get banned? Iran is about one game away from clinching their World Cup spot. Are they going to get banned? So these policies that have already happened before and that Trump has promised will be put in place, how are they going to affect not only the teams coming here, but also the fans wanting to travel here? And also remember, we got several clubs from Africa. We got the Mamelou Sundowns from South Africa. We got from Morocco. We got Sport ES Tunis from Tunisia, and Saudi Arabia is not going to be affected by this. By the way, Saudi Arabia, the Saudi royal family, and the Trump family have a very close relationship to one another. So I'm sure they will not be affected. Al Ain and their fans from the UAE probably will also not be affected. But again, those fans from Tunisia, those fans from Morocco, from South Africa, might be affected by Trump's visa policies and the administration's desires to really cut down on what they perceive is an invasion of immigrants. Well, whether you agree with that or not, I'll let that be. Now, is this a good thing for FIFA? Trump's victory, because FIFA, as I had shared a video right before the election, FIFA was not ready for a potential Trump victory to happen again, okay? And so what you're looking at here now is that FIFA has to reconnect and re-engage with a whole bunch of different people in this administration. And if you don't think those things are important, fam, I'm telling you, as a person that's worked here and lived here in Washington, D.C. for over 10 years, I can tell you that relationships matter. And so when you're telling me that FIFA did not and was not ready for the potential of a second Trump administration, which is now going to be the thing, it really tells you that, now they need to reconnect and reestablish relationships and create new ones. And so the joke with FIFA, especially for the last two World Cups, where with Qatar and Russia, was that FIFA prefers not to work with democracies, because with democracies, there's bureaucracy, there's decision making, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you could say that FIFA really enjoyed working with Qatar and with Russia because they were more authoritarian governments. They're able to, snap the finger, get things done, and we're good to go. Probably the reason why they were so invested in having Saudi Arabia be for 2034. Yes, they had to deal with the 2030 World Cup with Portugal, Morocco, Spain, and adding the 3 South American countries. That was basically all mashed together to allow for Saudi 2034, okay? And so will Trump's presidency be a good thing for FIFA? We will have to wait and see. I know that's maybe I'll cover more of that in my another video, but it is no secret that FIFA prefers to work with, let's just say, the less friction in their implementation and decision making as possible, the better for them. Okay. The final point I maybe want to talk about with Trump's victory is, what is going to be America's image in 2025, 2026? This is probably more for a what to expect for the next couple of years. But at least with 2024, the specter was always there for Trump to win the election. He did end up winning the election. We saw a little bit of the ass kissing, let's just put it that way, that Infantino was doing to Trump at the Club World Cup draw. He had Ivanka Trump with her son there. It was a very awkward moment, just very surreal too. Trump sending in that video message as well, which really just felt out of place, not necessary. And really, for those of you that were like, "Oh, we should be mixing soccer and politics," then why allow that, right? So it's okay to criticize content creators like myself that are anti-Trump, and we critique Trump and his policies. But when then he shows up, on a video screen there right before the initiation of the FIFA Club World Cup draw, oh, that's okay. He's just saying good things. It just comes off as really weird. It comes off as, again, the vibes of wanting to please dictators, or one, at least in America's case, wannabe dictators. It just really comes off with the wrong vibe. So you got a preview, at least this year, on what FIFA, or how FIFA is going to work with this new Trump administration. Of course, we'll have to see what effects that will have, whether that's going to help FIFA achieve its own goals here for the upcoming two tournaments of the Club World Cup and World Cup, or is Trump going to, want to do his own thing, which kind of contradicts what FIFA wants to do, and then they're going to get into arguments. We will have to wait and see. But from what we've seen so far in 2024, Infantino's strategy is please Trump, praise him a lot, and in the hopes that they will get what they want in return. All right, mi gente, let's wrap up this video here. Thank you so much for your support in 2024. It really means a lot that you've been following me through this journey. I know that one thing I didn't mention is the potential incoming TikTok ban. Is TikTok going to get banned? If it does, that would be a very serious break to my monetization of my content, because TikTok has been the platform that has successfully paid me for my content, not Instagram, none of these other platforms. So that's why it's important for you to subscribe and, click the bell button, so that way you know when I produce new content. And I need to hit that 3,000 hours watch from all of you to be able to get my YouTube videos monetized as a potential replacement to this TikTok ban that might be coming. I don't know. We'll have to see what the Supreme Court decides at the end of the day. So thank you again for your support. Make sure, like I said, subscribe, click the bell buttons, and that way you're aware of my new content. Follow me on all the other socials, Instagram. It does help with the numbers there to, increase my brand recognition, hopefully. Blue Sky, I am going to be posting more content on Blue Sky. I am going to be leaving X. And then, of course, make sure, again, subscribe here to YouTube. I just kind of have to repeat all these things over and over again. And if the TikTok ban does not happen, hey, continue following me there, because I do produce more of the short form content there, more of the breaking news, more of that type of content there. So, again, thank you all so much for your support. Happy New Year. If you're ending up watching this video in 2025, bueno, pues vamos a ver. We'll see you in the new year. And I will be producing another video tomorrow on the 1st about 5 questions that await for us as soccer fans for those tournaments in 2025. Muchas gracias, mi gente. Ahí nos vemos.